Good morning. It's a beautiful day. I think that this episode is going to be a bit like a coaching session. I'm still feeling the need to talk about ancestral work. I've thought about in earlier episodes talking about purpose. And today I kept feeling a nudge to talk about sacred tools, sacred text, and sacred practices. I just laughed because I want to name something that I recognized yesterday. I really, really love the word sacred. And I like it because, I grew up in the church and the word holy was a word that meant set apart for a purpose. And so when you saw your life as being apart for a purpose, it gives great meaning, you know? It gives you a goalpost. And when I left the church, and that's another story for another time, there were words that I used to use in that space that just didn't work for me anymore. But the theme really did. And so this idea of sacredness, that our lives are sacred, that we have a sacred purpose, that there's this sacred alignment. All of these words can be said without sacred alignment, values, text, practices, your purpose. But something happens to me. I get super excited when I hear the word sacred because what it means to me is that everyone has a unique reason for being, has a unique purpose, has unique gifts to share with the world, that their being in and of itself is sacred. And somehow that holds so much more weight because we misuse words all of the time. We don't make what the word actually means a purposeful practice. We actually will use a word and not to the fullest extent of itself. Tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. But also, in telling the truth, will omit the truth, right? That's still telling the whole truth. I only told the truth. I withheld some of the truth. And so a sacred truth is like, oh, this truth is special. This truth will stand the test of time. This truth is everything. It encompasses the good and the bad, and it balances it, and it is divine truth. So I just wanted to name, because you probably recognized it, that I use this word sacred often. And I don't want it to become repetition for you. I or that you think that that's what I'm doing. I'm just repeating something over and over again. When I say the word sacred, I want you to lean in and feel the weight of the word that comes after it. So let's talk about your sacred purpose. A lot of people talk about what's the meaning of life? You hear that. And a lot of people feel as if there is no meaning to life, there is no purpose. Things just happen randomly. Or there's people who are like, I did all of this. Sometimes we can diminish our purpose where we don't see the value that is us, don't see the sacredness that is our existence. When we say we don't matter or what we think doesn't matter or what we do doesn't matter, that's us diminishing our being and our purpose. We, on the other hand, can also inflate our purpose. We think more highly of ourselves than we ought. And listen, I am all for knowing who you are and standing in the truth of who you are and not being ashamed, not shrinking. That's not what I'm talking about. That is confidence. That is courage. That is understanding your unique and sacred being. When I say inflating our purpose, that is when we are inflating ourselves into the space where others should be filling for themselves. When we think that only we can lead a project because I have all of the tools and skills to do it, and you all just sit back and listen to me, that is an inflated sense of purpose. And it's often insecurity, the need to prove oneself. It is this belief that when people see me, then they'll appreciate me. Then they'll know that I'm great. But greatness does not have to inflate itself. Greatness just is. And so knowing our purpose is a balance. It's a balance of knowing who we are, knowing that we are unique, that there's no one else on this planet that can do the thing that you came here to do, that has the gifts that you have, and that you're here to use in the way that only you can use. That is knowing our purpose. And also knowing that there are people here who have a unique gift that is equal to yours, but very different, very unique, and that they can be used in collaboration with your gift to assist humanity, the whole of humanity, in reaching its highest potential. That is knowing your purpose and being in the balance of appreciating and knowing your purpose and also appreciating and knowing the purpose of others. That is sacred balance. That is what will keep us operating in the harmony of the universe. So, back to purpose. How do we know our purpose? Well, what are some of the things that you are really good at? What are some of the things that you love to do? I don't care what it is. What are the things that bring you joy, that make you feel alive, make you feel like more of yourselves? I want you to write those things down. They're very important. And if you are feeling like, oh, well, this doesn't have anything to do with life, this is just something fun that I into life, write it down anyway. You know, we devalue the aspects of life that don't revolve around money. We devalue the purpose of many things. So right now, I want you to remain in the place of not deflating the things that you're good at and not inflating the things that you're good at. That's another thing that we do. Because sometimes we can see somebody else doing a thing and we can see the response that they receive and the accolades that they achieve. And we get focused on what they're doing and wanting their outcome, that we're actually doing something that isn't in our lane. It isn't something that brings us joy. I absolutely 1000% believe that we need to be doing things that bring us joy. I think when we are in joy, we are a higher form of ourselves. We are at peace, we're at play, and we're in purpose. I like alliterations too. The number 4 is important with my teaching. Alliterations come natural, and I love a good analogy. These are some things that I use in fulfilling my purpose. So what do I love? What are the things that make me feel like me? 1, I love empowering people. I love to empower people. I love when people have a breakthrough and they see something differently. I'm a cheerleader. I used to say this all the time. I am someone who will root for you, who will cheer you on. I want to see other people happy. I want to see people happy. I love people. I love people, but people also exhaust me. And the reason why I'm exhausted by people is because I really dislike how people act towards one another. I am an observer of behavior and the effects of the behavior. And so it's really hard for me to be in a crowded room and to recognize who isn't being included. It's really hard for me to not focus on what the needs of the people are around me. I really do love to be in service to people and humanity. I'm also a Libra through and through. And so fairness and equality and balance and justice are so very important to me. I think that it's important to make sure that everyone has equal access and equal opportunity. And when that's not happening, I'm a fierce warrior to restore justice. I see myself often as Lady Justice, with the scales in one hand and the sword in the other. And that sword isn't to fight, it's to cut away all of the things that try to keep us entangled with injustice. So I'm just sharing with you a bit of the work that I've done over the course of my life. Have I always known all of this? No, I have not. These are lessons that I've learned going through my life and focusing on who I am as a divine being. What is important to me? What makes me feel alive? What do I stand for? What values guide my life and my actions? How can I serve humanity with my sacred being? This is how we find our purpose. And like I said, it is hard. It's not something that's easy. This is a purposeful practice in assisting us in our growth as the self, our personal development. I talked a little earlier on about how I left Christianity. And the reason why I left Christianity was because, and this is me just sharing, if you are a Christian, I believe that people can stay in Christianity. This is in no way a bash to Christianity. I'm just telling you my journey. And there were always certain things that I had questions about. I remember asking my pastor, maybe I was 13, and we were reading about Moses and Pharaoh and how Moses was trying to release his people out of captivity. And, being of African American descent, I could understand this concept of slavery and how it affected a people. And there's a part where it says that God sent an evil spirit to torment Pharaoh to keep him from letting the people go. And I was just so confused about quite a few things. The first thing is that this God that is good, how does he have an evil spirit to send to torment Pharaoh? And why? Why would he send this evil spirit to torment Pharaoh, knowing that that would cause Pharaoh to not want to let the people go? And then why would he send death to all the firstborn of the land of Egypt because of what Pharaoh had done? It seemed so unjust. It seemed so unfair. And then there was times where I would read about the Israelites going into a land and being ordered by God to kill, or God's prophet to kill men, women, and children so that they could possess the land. It's something about that didn't sit right with me, because I knew that that is what happened to the indigenous people of every nation. And I kept hearing that the Israelites, the Hebrews, were God's chosen people. And something about that didn't sit right with me, because if God had chosen people then, and God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, well, what's wrong with him having chosen people now? And what's wrong with genocide now? And what's wrong with killing people to be free and have land now? What's wrong with that? And so I remember talking to God and saying, I can't reconcile this with all that I know and all that I am. I don't understand how this is okay and how we glorify this as being okay. And what Spirit spoke to me was that men can often make up stories that help them justify their behavior, and they blame it on God. But God is good. God is love. The fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, long-suffering. I can't remember the other one. I think I'm missing one. But Spirit directed me to that, and also directed me to look at the example of Yeshua. What did Yeshua do? What did Jesus do? He came to show us how to live Oftentimes we glorify the way that he died because in his death, there was payment for all of our wrongdoing. And so when people are focused on the death of Christ, they're really just focused on the payment for whatever they choose to do that is wrong. It's already been paid for. But when we focus on his life, we have a different take. We have a different responsibility to live as he lived. And I was in a wonderful community, but I was seeing a lack of accountability, and I was seeing a lot of justification for the things that I could not reconcile. And so I had to leave. And that was a very hard choice because that meant I was alone. I went from being in a lovely community of people who were kind, who cared about me and my family. And then there was just me on this spiritual journey, being the rebel, and also learning profound truths about the truth of life and being able to live it with integrity, without justification of the wrongs. Somehow we made our way back to ancestral work. Because again, when we look back into sacred text where Jesus, Yeshua, is talking about what is the greatest commandment. Love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That is the commandment that we received. And now we get to look back over all of the times where we were not love to our neighbor. And our neighbor is not the person who physically lives next to you. It is all. It is all. It's not just people. It is the land. It is the animals. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. Does loving your neighbor justify slavery? No. So we must not justify slavery. Does love your neighbor as yourself justify colonization and genocide? No. Love your neighbor does not. Love your neighbor is about freedom and liberation. Love your neighbor about rejecting those who were not privileged enough to be born in a country. No. Love your neighbor is not throwing out the foreigner. Love your neighbor is about bringing in the foreigner and the widow and the parentless. So as a society, we can look at how we have operated, how our ancestors have operated. And I'm talking about the collective ancestor, because a lot of times we can say, well, my ancestors did this and they did that. And it's, you know what? That's great. They walked in their purpose. They fulfilled that, but it's not complete. That work is not complete because not all ancestors have. And if we are connected to everyone who has ever lived and to the land, then there is a sacred purpose, a sacred work that we have to do to make sure that for those ancestors who were out of alignment, that we are doing the work to release their thought patterns and their behaviors, and we're not bypassing the work that we get to do because we are here. We don't rest on our laurels. We do not sit back and say, this is the work for other people to do. It is not my work to do. No, we see the whole world as a mirror, and we see the things that it reflects back to us as work still for us to do. Grateful for this time this morning. Thank you, Spirit, for the divine guidance and for the word that you shared today. I hope that you, listener, will begin to lean into your purpose, to understand who you are fully with beautiful humility, knowing right where you belong, knowing exactly who you are, knowing your unique calling. And if you need support in this, I'd love to hear from you. Check out my website, PamelaGreatDaniel.com, if you're interested in going deeper into the work of finding out your unique purpose. We're diving into some ancestral work, I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day.